It's windy. Quite windy. And in this wind, let us address one of the most critical topics for humanity. Let's go big. Let's just say it's one of the most important topics for humanity right now. And it is the topic of why strong men don't obey. The reason I want to talk about this is that I saw an opinion piece in the Norwegian media a couple of days ago. It was from some B-list celebrity. I don't know who is a celebrity. These days I don't care about celebrity culture. I think it was some stand-up comedian or something like that. And I read his piece. And one of the things that he talked about was that our government was somehow lacking a spine for not being willing to introduce a corona passport. They were cowards. Well, it's part of the story that the Norwegian government is now talking about this. And of course, we know where this is headed. But the point is that this was one man that held in himself a narrative that being a no to corona passport was a sense that you were a coward and lacking in spine. They didn't have a spine because they didn't want to introduce the corona passport. Now, this kind of reasoning is only happening when culture has become profoundly ill. And where men are so terrified and so unable to have personhood, so unable to demonstrate the fundamental principles of truth, justice, democracy, ethics, that he had to distort reality to the point that introducing an unprecedented limitation of freedom and basic democratic principles to impinge on them was bravery and having a spine. Now, I was talking in a recent YouTube video about the Great Bifurcation. You can find out on the Reclaiming the Throne YouTube channel. And in this video, I argued that there are two main camps that are forming around the COVID narrative. It is the camp that, let's just call them the smart city camp. It's a timeline that is dystopian, where the machine world governs everything, and it also infiltrates the human, the body, the mind. The machine is inside of the human as well. Everything is controlled, surveilled. Democracy is a story that is told, probably a horror story by now, about the terrible, terrible dangers of democracy and how it lets alt-right fascists take over the freedom of you, our beloved citizens. We don't need to speculate too much, because this kind of nonsense has been playing out in the world throughout 20th century. We know the kind of communication of authoritarian regimes We also know a lot about this timeline through dystopian literature from George Orwell, Aldous Huxley. We know what it sounds like. And here are men, frightened to the bone, completely bereft of any sense of strength and courage in any part of their bodies, saying, we need to limit freedom to become free. This is the courageous thing. So the principle here is that as long as you obey, you are brave. This is a symptom of insanity. This man is insane. Temporarily, hopefully, but nevertheless he is. But since our culture is so unhinged at this point, I'm sure there are people who celebrate this message. I'm sure there are. Because when you have lost your autonomy, when you have lost your courage and strength, you need somebody to take care of you. You need a parent. And the government becomes the parent. And it doesn't matter how incompetent they are, how corrupt they are. I just want somebody to obey. God damn it. So I can feel for a moment in time a slight reduction in neurotic symptoms. That's a very fleeting reduction. They will return once the various tyrannical overreaches are increased. And then of course you need the pariah group again so that these people who have no courage can off-gas their aggression, their fear onto the pariah group instead of the people who actually deserve it, which is the lost boys and girls in power. Strong men don't obey. They don't. They just don't. Because a strong man is somebody who's willing to sacrifice something for the betterment of humanity and those that he loves. And we live now in a world where men made those sacrifices. In a time when the warrior archetype was properly constellated in many of these men, and they were willing to do something that was truly brave in order for their children to have a good life. So many of the people who are writing these kinds of crazy opinion pieces in the newspaper these days, not all of them, but the leading voices tend to be boomers. So people who were born between 45 and 64, and on the other side of the war, there was this sense of hope and prosperity and things were going to improve. And I get that it's hard for them to face the reality that the world is not actually improving anymore, and that it is in large part because of their failings. Their idea of unlimited growth, their expectations of having more, always. It must be hard to be in a world where we're getting less and less and less, in large part because I failed to sacrifice, because I failed to be brave. Let's have empathy with these people. Life isn't easy, and it's really confusing what's going on right now. And if I have grown up within a particular paradigm of growth, then it's hard to let go of that. But there is a strong sense of privilege here, of being the generation that grew up in the era of hope and prosperity. Not really having sacrificed that much. Not that much. Just surfing the wave. They haven't obeyed much. They have demanded. And many of those demands I'm grateful for. I want a better world. I want less war. Somewhere along the way, though, they didn't realize that they were becoming the very thing that they were fighting against. And here we are at the end of a seculum, a cycle of culture. Woo! It's really rather windy. Things are breaking down, as is men. This man believes that being a coward is the same thing as being brave. Imagine that. Like really imagine how inverted your world has become when you believe that being a proponent of a system of totalitarian control and intervention in all kinds of personal liberties, that is a good thing. How extracted has masculinity and the warrior archetype become out of these men? What is left? What is left other than a shell of a human being that just wants to be taken care of? You know, we run a men's initiation in Reclaiming the Throne. And one of the things that we do well is that we support men in facing all of the places where they have limited their power, where they have lied to themselves, where they have created the kind of suffering and pain in the world that they thought that they were fighting against. And so I live in the hope that every man will come to a point in his life when he actually has a real encounter with objective reality, that he steps out of this postmodern bubble of relativism and where he actually gets a spine, where he understands the true meaning of getting a spine, where he actually finds power, where he actually finds strength, where he actually constellates the warrior inside. But I don't know that it is in everyone's destiny to have that experience. I don't know that, but I hope so. I really hope so. The primary task now for us as men, I believe, is to stop obeying and to get clear on what is it that we are really serving, other than tyranny, that is. To find each other in brotherhood. To become men that come together to work for and perhaps even sacrifice for this new and more beautiful world. And maybe that's scary. It could very well be a scary thing. But the alternative is way more frightening, way more frightening. And so this is the beautiful thing about this moment that we're in. Out of urgency, men need to become strong again. Because there's a lot of you out there now that know that things aren't adding up. And yet you don't have a frame of reference in your life for being a stand for something and sacrificing for something, because this has not been the kind of world that you've been living in, thanks to the sacrifices of men of the past. But now we're at that intersection yet again, and it's men like yourself that will have to stand up and make your own personal sacrifices. And while that is scary, I certainly feel that, it is also an invitation to have that spine which the spineless are talking about. Hopefully they will wake up. Many of them will. Joining us as we are paving the way for this more beautiful world. Because that's what we are. I mean, I have so much hope for what is happening in the world now. So much hope. So many people are waking up. Though we will only get through this when we men become strong. You know, at the end of my teens and early 20s, I was a complete geek that was shy and afraid of the world. And I'm laughing as I'm thinking of the journey that I've been on since then. But you know, if I can make it, then you can. These are exciting times. They're like proper exciting times. And when we take the steps that will make us proud, our children proud, our loved ones proud, the kind of legacy that we will leave behind, it's mind-blowing, you know? We get to make such a difference in our lives. Being alive today, we get to make such a difference, to leave such a legacy of a such more beautiful world for all human beings, particularly our children. We get to do that. As long as we don't obey when little men and women who are afraid of the world and who are probably being puppeted by people who are also similarly lost, why would we obey them? If there's anyone whose instructions we should follow, it's somebody who has reclaimed their inner throne, who is truly in sovereignty. So let's find those people, let's become those people, and let's together create a new culture where men get to be strong and women get to trust men once more. I think it's time, guys. I really do. So, hope you have a good day. I'll see you next time.